Welcome back to the program, and on this particular segment we're going to be coming up close with the strides of the Gates Foundation in Nigeria. Of course, I'm sure that you've been acquainted with, the visit of the tech billionaire Bill Gates to Nigeria in recent times. He's been to Nigeria a bit more frequently, and of course you also know that he was conferred with a national honor by Mr. President. And in different fora, he has emphasized, that's the tech billionaire, that Nigeria is the biggest recipient of its intervention funds in Africa, and Nigeria is critical to plays a critical role to its efforts to address global health inequalities. So, and that's backed up that with action by making Nigeria its destination for the very first time of the Goalkeepers event. So let's come up close with the high points of the Goalkeepers events that was just held in the country, in Lagos, the commercial capital, to be precise. And joining us on this segment, we have the country director for Gates Foundation, Mr. Uche Amonwu. I hope I got your name correctly, sir. Good morning, Mr.
Yes.
Amonwu.
Good morning, Bukola.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for
having me. So let's start right away. What informed the choice of the hosting of the Goalkeepers event in Nigeria for the first time?
Yes, so thank you. The Goalkeepers event was established by the foundation to do two things, right? One is to really amplify the progress that the world is making towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And the second is to focus on the change makers that are driving that progress. So that's what it's always been. The choice of Nigeria was very intentional. If you think about it, Nigeria has the largest youth population in Africa and a growing innovation ecosystem. So it's really a way for us to localize some of the conversations that are happening at a global level within Nigeria, to be able to highlight the Nigeria-led solutions that are being implemented by our people to be able to drive some of this progress, and also to bring really, the concept that development has to be done closest to the people who you're trying to impact. So, that's the reason we decided to bring this to Nigeria.
Brilliant. So for those who are wondering, they're looking at the regularity of Bill Gates' visit to Nigeria in recent times and the commitment of those billions of dollars into development in Nigeria. How is it affecting me? How do I benefit from it? For those who are looking at it from that standpoint, how is the Gates Foundation creating hubs for youth development to drive inclusion, representation, participation, such that those funds can improve the lot of the youth for those locally driven solutions, either it's in tech or it's in healthcare?
Yeah, so Goalkeepers is one of the platforms for us to do that. If you think about it, this is where we actually try to profile young innovators and social entrepreneurs who are making real change, right, in the sectors we care about: health, agriculture, gender equality, education. And we give them that platform to tell their stories, right? So that's really the essence of the Goalkeepers function. And we believe by amplifying these local voices, you're doing two things, right? You're building momentum, current momentum around some of those innovations that are driving, to make sure that, people hear more about it and can actually feel inspired to be able to take it forward. And the second thing is that you're connecting those young leaders, right, to a global audience where they can have access to resources, networks, both locally and globally, to be able to scale the innovations that they're driving. So it's forums like this that I think are going to be critical to make sure that some of these innovations aren't hidden. They're actually made very public, and people are aware that they're happening. And that's the way you actually create a movement of change for people to take those and move them forward.
Well, you may think it's not hidden, but some may not know how to get on board the Goalkeepers community. We'll get to that subsequently. But let's manage our time now. In the short term or in the long term, what are your projections about the impact of the Goalkeepers event on those hubs that have been created for participation, for inclusion in the sectors that are important to the foundation, be it tech or healthcare?
Yeah. So in the short term, it's really about awareness, right, and visibility, and providing the opportunity for collaboration for some of these young innovators. So that's the short-term goal about it, just to make these things visible so people can see it and support it. In the long term, in development, we use the term capacity building a lot, but there's the other side of institutional capacity, which is individual capacity, right? Are we able to build a movement of local change makers who can influence policy, right, shift narratives, and actually help accelerate Nigeria's progress towards these goals, right? So that's actually another way of building this capacity in people versus institutions. Both things are important, but I think the Goalkeepers focuses more on the people, and can we actually create an army of people who are really doing great things and can do it at an accelerated pace for Nigerians.
So can you share some tangibles, some key successes, identifiable impacts of the foundation's investments in Nigeria?
Yeah, so over the years in Nigeria, the foundation has supported programs in health, agriculture, financial inclusion, and education that have reached millions of Nigerians. For example, if you take our work in health, we've supported work around routine immunization and primary healthcare systems that have contributed to reducing Nigeria's burden of diseases for things like polio, malaria, and other infectious diseases. Today we are currently backing efforts by Nigerians to really bring down the high rates of maternal and child mortality in Nigeria through investments that are focused on scaling the adoption of, low-cost but high-impact solutions that actually address the root causes of why mothers die at childbirth and why children don't survive past the age of 1 or 2 years, right? So these are investments that the foundation has invested in developing, and we are bringing some of this to support the government of Nigeria and its efforts to be able to combat some of these diseases. If you look at the work we do outside of the health space, in agricultural productivity, where we're trying to combat food insecurity and nutrition insecurity, right? A lot of people don't know that nutrition is actually one of the biggest, or malnutrition is one of the biggest challenges we face in the neural development of the child's brain. So if children are chronically malnourished for a long time, then it actually impacts their ability to be successful in life. So we focus again on innovations that prevent malnutrition from happening. And some of these have to happen through the food systems, what people eat on a day-to-day basis, and what they plant in their farms. If you think about...
okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I just want to point out one more piece around education, which is another area where we focused on. And this one, we focused on what we call foundational literacy and numeracy. So that's making sure that by the time a child gets to primary 5, they actually know how to read and write, right? Because we've understood that building this foundation is fundamental to the ability of a child to be able to be successful in higher grades in class. So the foundation chooses to focus on that level to make sure that we're able to set the child up for success. So that's just a few areas.
All right, and I believe that there are more. But let's look at the nitty-gritty now. What role does innovation play for positioning in the developmental strides of the Gates Foundation in Nigeria? And relatedly, as a young person who is watching you and wanting to be a beneficiary of the Gates Foundation investment strides in Nigeria, how do they position themselves, and what areas of innovation should they deploy their talent and energies to that can make them benefit from the Gates Foundation investment in the country?
Yeah, it's a good question. Innovation and technology, because of our origins, right? Innovation and technology are central to our DNA at the Gates Foundation. We've invested in, innovations in digital ID, for example, or payment systems that actually if done right, they are able to expand access to financial services to, people who would otherwise not be included in the banking system. We also have, we're making investments in strengthening health data systems and surveillance platforms that will help us detect the next pandemic before it hits us, right? So things like this, and more recently when Bill was here, for those that followed, we actually entered into a landmark agreement to establish Nigeria's first artificial intelligence scaling hub. And the focus of the hub is really to help accelerate, the adoption of use cases for artificial intelligence that will help reduce or improve the delivery of key services in health, in education, and agriculture. So, so really in everything we do, it starts with innovation and how can we use technology to help us leapfrog things. Now, for the, Nigeria has a vibrant youth innovation ecosystem, and the interesting thing about them is you actually don't have to prod them, right, to be, prolific in their innovation. So they're out there innovating, they're out there doing their things. So I'd say just keep doing that. And when we have the opportunity to be able to engage with some of our platforms, like the Goalkeepers platform that we do, or directly reach out to the Nigeria country office to talk about the innovations you have, we are looking for an opportunity to be able to get those young people, understand what they do, and connect them to resources that can actually help them do this better. So, we are committed as a foundation to make sure that those innovations are surfaced, through the platforms that we have, but also through informal means of just having, folks reach out to us. So, young people, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to hear from you and try and connect you to opportunities to accelerate what you do every day.
So it's that simple. Just reach out to the Nigeria country office of the Gates Foundation, and they can get the necessary help that they need.
Correct.
All right. As we coast home now, in what ways, and this is important, in what ways has the Gates Foundation adapted its strategies and response to its development efforts in Nigeria to sort of feel the global shocks emanating from recent funding cuts from the U.S. government? Is the Gates Foundation helping to fill any of those funding gaps for non-governmental organizations and their development work in the country?
Yeah, Bukola, that's probably the most popular question that I get asked. The reality is that, the withdrawal of, development countries and their monies supporting development work, has been very, very, very large, right? If you think about USAID, for example, they have a total budget of about $60 billion that is spent on development a year, right, across the world. And now all those funds are gone. At its best, at its highest spending, the Gates Foundation only has about a $9 billion budget. So even if we tried, we'll not be able to fill that gap, and that's the reality about it. But, but what are we doing to be able to help address that, right? So we're, in our portfolio of work, we are prioritizing down to the innovations and interventions that actually get us the best bang for our buck. So low-cost innovations with high impact, and making sure we are focused on those ones, because that way we're making judicious use of our funding. We're also looking at the way we run our investments, right? Where the opportunities for us to back local implementing partners versus the implementing partners to the global north that tend to, cost a little bit more. We want to be able to do that, right? We're also making sure that, we're still finding other co-travelers who are still invested in the fight to be able to drive development. And when we find them, we try and invite them to be able to co-invest with us. And this could be government partners, this could be other philanthropies that are emerging, this could be high net worth individuals that are looking at what's happening and want to do more. We welcome that, those co-travelers to be able to support us in this effort. And finally, it's one thing to raise money, but it's another thing to be able to make sure those funds are used effectively. So we are also building mechanisms in our programming to make sure that every single naira that we are raising in this difficult time is not being squandered, right? It's being used effectively to be able to save lives and provide economic opportunity for the people that we care about. So those are the things that we are doing currently.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir. And you know, you have our full support as you continue in your developmental strides in Nigeria. Thank you so much. We've been talking with Mr. Uche Amonwu, Nigeria Country Director for the Gates Foundation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Bukola.